Hello, everybody. Welcome to our webinar. We are very excited to have you here on our topic of green by design. Today we will talk about digital design and sustainability, and I think this is a very, very exciting as well as important topic. And I have two amazing guests with me. One is Stan Bühne, Managing Director of the International Requirements Engineering Board. And then I have with me here Norbert Seif. He is Professor for Requirements Engineering at the University of Applied Science in Northwestern Switzerland. And welcome. I'm very happy to have you here, and I'm very happy that we will discuss this very important topic in the next hour.
Perfect, thank you. Also from my side, very welcome to our today's talk, Green by Design. Today I talk together with Norbert, and maybe we'll start with a short introduction. Not sure, Norbert, would you like to start?
Yes, sure. Thank you very much, Eva. Thank you very much, Stan. As it has been already said, my name is Norbert Seif. I'm a professor for requirements engineering, and we have seen that in the last decade, I would say, there is a big shift from plain software engineering to also thinking about sustainability and what it means in the field of requirements and software engineering. And it's great that we have the chance to discuss this a little bit more today. And we also have a very special focus. We say green by design. And Stan will then also report a little bit of the activities of IRAP on the digital design professional. And we will then show how this is linked to the designing of sustainable solutions of the future. And with this, back to you again, Stan.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Norbert. Yeah, also from my side, maybe short introduction. My name is Stan Bühne, as already mentioned. I'm Managing Director of the IRAP GmbH. And for everyone who does not know IRAP is the one who has certain responsibility and is an expert association for requirements engineering. We have the CPRE certification schema, and since 3 years also the topic of digital design. And for today we would like to focus on the area of designing solutions, also especially with the focus on sustainability, as Norbert already mentioned. Beside us, there are many, many more people involved in this topic. On the one hand, there are some people from the working groups from IRAP. They are working on the topic of digital design. On the other hand, there are many people from the Karlskrona group, where Norbert is involved, working on the topic of sustainability. And here just a few photos that you get some impression that there are many more people than just the two of us involved in these topics. So let's start first with the idea of what is digital design. And when talking about digital design, with people who did not really know the area of digital design, many people think digital design is just about designing things in the idea of making things more pretty, looking good, and so on. But what we understand on the term of design is much more. It's more the idea of a holistic thing. It's not just how something appears and how something looks like, but it's just really how something is functioning. And that's why I bring some definitions with me. And if we see the topic the term digital design, this is the creative design of digital solutions. So what does design and what does digital solution in this topic mean? When looking to design, one definition of design is, on the one hand, that you have a plan or drawing that is produced to show something will look like, will function, or that it will be structured before it is made. This means a kind of result that is done, and a kind of model that is made, a kind of really plan or drawing, construction that is done before something is really implemented, before something is really done. On the other hand, when talking about design, we understand the activity. This means one is really the end result, and the other thing is the activity of creating this design. This is also meant by the definition of design. So taking this together, digital design, and when we talk about design, we talk about solutions. And when talking about solutions, then we talk about socio-technical systems today. This means really how something will function in the real world by digital means. Let's give me some examples of digital design. We all know Netflix, and Netflix is a great example of what digital design is. So on the one hand, you see it's just some kind of, let's say, application you could use at your television, you could use at your smartphone, at your tablet, or wherever you want. But when looking a bit deeper in Netflix, then we see that this is a real disruptive solution, because coming from the world of videotapes or CDs that were, on the one hand, somehow digitalized in a more way that they could be available via by electronic means. This means they could be rented, for instance, electronically, and they could be just on a pay-per-use session. Netflix goes one step further. There's a complete different business model, because when looking at Netflix, for instance, then you see that you pay a monthly fee and you would have a flat rate. This means you could look how much you want, how much you can. And this is something that's completely different from the original idea of renting a videotape or renting a DVD. And this is only possible by technology. This means by bandwidth that is available, by the technology of payment that is available, by authentication methods that are available, and so on. And looking to that, this also needs to keep in mind when designing such kind of solutions. You need to be aware of the digital capabilities. We call this sometimes material, your digital material, that you need to be aware of how to build this kind of solutions. Another example is, for instance, Lime or any other of these providers for rental of bikes, scooters, and so on. And I like this example of Lime, for instance, because this is not only about the software you have on your smartphone to just rent this bike for a period of time. But when talking about digital design, we also need to have in mind that we sometimes need to adopt some analog things, like the bicycle here. This means you need some kind of connection between our app and the vehicle, here the bicycle. This means we need to have some kind of element, a digital element that will connect with the app, that will talk via a network with the app, that this is rented, that this is available, that the brakes are released, and that I can use this vehicle in this time. So this means this all is digital design, thinking about the entire solution, not only this part of this, let's say, tiny software element, but also the world around, with this in the analog world, with the internet connections, with the elements that need to be considered via the renting process, and so on and so on. Another example we all know is Airbnb, and also here, this is more or less similar to Netflix, transporting everything or every flat that is available in a digital platform. So this means anywhere you want to go, you could find some space, some rooms, some houses just for renting. And you also have a platform for people that are offering their homes. And looking back 10 or 20 years, this business was completely different. This was more paper-based. You have to call some people. You have to have some bookings one by one. You have to call many people because rooms are booked completely. So this means by Airbnb, also we have this kind of digital transformation where the new business process that is supported by technology looks completely different than the business process that was done previously in the analog world. When designing digital solutions, and that's what the topic of today's talk is about with respect to sustainability, we also need to consider that solutions, or when designing these digital solutions, we need to consider on the one hand people, such as users, customers, all people involved and so on, but we also need to consider business aspects like the value proposition, for whom the system is built, what is the revenue stream I'm looking for, what is the target group I'm focusing with this product. All these aspects from a business point of view, they need to be considered as well. And last but not least, technology. Then, because only by the means of technology today we are able to create this kind of solutions. And we need to consider all these three aspects in the same way. This means when talking about digital design, we shall not focus only on, for instance, the user, only on the business, or only on, let's say, some techie aspects, but we need to create a solution that fits all purposes. And that's why we say digital design or creating digital solutions is a holistic way of thinking. When looking to digital design, this is a bit different than creating, let's say, classical software systems. In our today's world, with our existing roles like classical requirements engineering, classical architecture, classical implementation and testing, many people are just laying down on their roles and they say, I only need to think about my job and my responsibilities, but they don't look beyond the border. And that's why mostly when talking about classical software development, people look on the digital system and maybe also on the interfaces of the system. And this is completely fine when building systems that shall be developed for a certain user group within a company, or if you know your customers directly. And this is quite easy because then you know your context, you know your requirements for the system, you know, for instance, also what needs to be considered with respect to sustainability and so on. But getting more, let's say, digital and also in a kind of digital transformation, we also need to focus, as mentioned already, on the business model, on the value chain, on the customers paying for the solutions. And we also need to think about how this money that the customers pay can be charged directly. What is the license cost? How does this digital solution look like? How does this fit to the entire business model of the company? And last but not least, for sure, we also need to consider the entire context that is relevant. And within the context, we have some legal aspects that we need to consider. We have to consider for some sustainability aspects. We need to consider the society, because when designing such digital solutions like Netflix or also Airbnb, this has an impact on the society. this has an impact on the ecological system outside, because people nowadays, when renting a kind of movie or when looking a movie, behave completely different than I did 20 years ago. And this means when designing such things, we always also need to consider the aspect of the society, and with looking at the society, we also need to consider the aspect on our environment. That's why we also need to consider sustainability as well. When looking at a digital solution, we have the perceivable aspect and an underlying aspect. Let me shortly explain with the example of taking a photo. Everything what is perceivable to the user, for instance, when taking a photo, the functionalities, this means how the photo is taken. Do I need to press a button? Can I enlarge something on the screen? How is this really done? This means the functionality that is given by the application and also by the system around, for instance, the smartphone. How is the integration to the smartphone app and so on? What we also have at the perceivable layer is the form. This means for taking the photo, we need to have some kind of representation for the user, with the user interface for the photo. So how this is designed, how this is structured, is this somehow good to understand, and so on. On the right-hand side, we have the quality aspect, means we have, for instance, the number of pictures that could be taken per second. These are all aspects the user could directly perceive when using this application. On the lower level, the underlying level, we have more, let's say, technical things, where also comes into the topic where we need to consider technology. So, for instance, on the function to take a photo, the smartphone offers, for instance, some algorithm on the logic of artificial intelligence for face recognition. It's not that important how this algorithm is really working for the user. The user likes the functionality that the faces are somehow marked in the picture, but it's not important how this is really working, what is the algorithm behind. Another example for underlying quality is, for instance, the speed of a memory. How fast could pictures be saved or reproduced from the memory that the user can take his photos? Or data model behind how the GPS data is saved, image settings, some metadata that is saved along with the picture, and so on. These are all aspects of the underlying form. Why we are talking about this? Because especially at the underlying level, we are most often talking about technology and technical aspects. And here we always need to consider some sustainable aspects or sustainability aspects, because if you want to have a high quality artificial intelligence algorithm, you may need some kind of new processor, you need some additional or some new device. And this all goes hand in hand with the question, is this solution still sustainable or not? When designing a digital solution, IRAP, together with the BITCOM, the German Association for Digital, has created 10 principles of good digital design. And you can have a look on that afterwards. They are completely available on the website if you look for Digital Design Manifesto. But I want to focus on 2 dedicated principles. This is principle 6, that good digital design anticipates the effects of its results. This means when creating a digital solution, a digital designer should already know what are the effects of its results. And this goes into the idea of what does it mean for sustainability? What does it mean to the society? What does it mean for the economy outside. Another thing is number 8, principle 8, means good digital design is sustainable and creates sustainability. Here we directly introduce for digital design that we need to consider sustainability. This means creating solutions that consider sustainability, and with digital means we also have the ability to create solutions that really produce sustainability. This at the end means when talking about digital solutions and sustainability, we all know that we need some people who somehow think different than today. They need to be aware of the effect of sustainability. They need to be aware of the effect of their power when creating a digital solution. And this is completely relevant for an education system, because here people get to know what kind of tools, methods, and principles they have when creating a kind of digital solution. And here sustainability is one key aspect. When talking about these people, we talk about digital design professionals. A digital design professional, in our point of view, is the one who is really taking this responsibility of the complete design, of shaping the digital solution from end to end. This also considers selecting the right technologies together with some experts, thinking about the sustainable effects and so on. This is a person who is really leading the building process from a design perspective. This means anytime having in mind what does this mean for the design of the entire solution, and here driving the process completely from the vision through the implementation. This means there's no direct gateway or handover to another person. We really need people who leads this design, who leads this building process from the perspective of design, from the very beginning to the rollout of the product, and even further when reworking and additional iterations on this product will be designed and will go live. As already mentioned, we need people who really consider business people and technology together. This means the solution must always consider all the 3 aspects and serve all the 3 dimensions. And we need to understand digital as a kind of shapeable material. What do I mean with shapeable material? When talking about technology, it doesn't matter if this is 5G, if this is artificial intelligence, if this is some cloud service. Then we need to understand this kind of digital technology as a kind of material that is shaped within our digital solutions. Like, for instance, a carpenter uses wood or steel or whatever to shape a new table. That's why the competence spectrum of a digital design professional is much broader than today for any other role we have. That's why we also say that digital design is not a role, it's more a profession. It gives you a skill set that can serve in a role of a requirements engineer, of a product owner, of an UX expert, of an architect, and so on. That's why we need some kind of design competence. We need some kind of right-hand side digital competence. With digital competence, we really mean this material and technology competence, that the person understands what are perceivable technologies, what is underlying technology. They need to know technology-oriented areas like operating systems, cloud systems, artificial intelligence, and so on. And they also should somehow understand business models and people, because at the end, we are all dealing with people. We are designing a system with a team, and everyone in the team has certain capabilities. One is really driving the idea of creating visions. Another one is really digging something more into detail and bringing something to converge and to provide something that is really implemented at the end. All in all, when looking back to the digital design professional, we see there's a lot of skills that are needed to create a digital solution. And for sure, the digital design professional can only be a kind of entry point that provides you some kind of, let's say, fundamental idea of which skills are needed. But it provides you the big and broad overview, different than other certifications, for instance, do today. And our target group is really requirements engineers, business analysts, UI, UX experts, product owners, architects, because they have the benefit that they are already somehow major in one area, in the technical area of technology, for instance, for architects, in the requirements engineering area, means for the in the design competence area for creating conceptual work, UX people more in the user part, and they all are they all have some certain benefits when talking about when learning about digital design, because they see the other three pillars when creating digital design work. Are there any questions already on digital design? Otherwise, I would like to hand over to Norbert to talk about digital design and sustainability. So this means how to make our solutions more green.
Thank you so much, Stan, for letting us know what this digital design professional really is and what digital design really is. I also wonder who is out there already thinking, oh yeah, I am this digital design professional already now. So this brings us to the next question. To what extent does this digital design idea already support sustainability? So what is the contribution of the current DDP in terms of sustainability? And this brings us back to the 10 principles for good digital design. And Stan already mentioned this anticipation for the effects of the results and that it is sustainable and creates sustainability. And let's have a closer look what also research says regarding these two aspects. So here we see some results we got as feedback from a study we did in 2016 with practitioners, where when we asked them, hey, requirements engineering, software engineering, and sustainability, how is this connected and how do you live that in your company? We basically got the feedback, oh wow, I'm surprised that you're addressing this in the context of software engineering. It's not really up to us as requirements engineers, software developers to think about that, to consider that. And there I feel the digital design professional has made a real change. So the DDP already advocates sustainable design. And that's so important. The awareness, simple to be aware, is so important. However, with the awareness also comes the responsibility. So, responsibility means also that we anticipate the effects of its results so that we look a little bit deeper and understand what we are actually producing and what are the long-term consequences of our designs. And that's not only something we at IREP or IREP promotes. Here I also want to refer to the Karlskrona Manifesto, where it also, as you can see now, clearly says as designers of software technology, we are responsible for the long-term consequences of our designs. And this responsibility, I think, is so important that we really consider ourselves to be responsible for what we do. So let's look ahead and let's have a look what it really means that it is sustainable and creates sustainability. And also, if we look a bit in research, it means we need a sustainable design process. Sustainable design process, it's about the development, right? A lot of people argue when you develop a digital solution, the process itself needs to be sustainable, the hardware, the energy consumption. It's very often simply about CO2 emissions to reduce that, which is, of course, super important. But the create sustainability, creating a sustainable digital solution, at least for me, is way more interesting and might even be more important and might have more impact. So that we say, okay, it is the product, it is the solution which really needs to be sustainable. And let's also have a look at the connection of these two things. For me personally, a sustainable design process, per definition, also needs to include the idea that in the end, we need to produce a sustainable digital solution. So if you have a design process where you save a lot of energy, where you have the best hardware in the world, you use it for 10 years, I know I exaggerate a little bit, but you do not aim at producing a digital solution which is sustainable, I think you cannot claim that you're actually having a sustainable design process. Let's now focus also a little bit more on what it means to have a real sustainable digital solution. And when you can hear me often say, in my opinion, right? Because there's so many opinions out there. There's so many definitions out there. And I really would love also to hear your opinions on this. Maybe you have a same concept in mind, but you simply use different terms. So we will come to this later. Here I now use my terms, let's say, or the terms we are using, but I would fully understand that you use different terms. Let's go back. What is a sustainable digital solution? At the one hand, you can argue it's a solution where the impact or the vision, the goals, anyway aim at sustainability. So any system which kind of, reduces poverty or helps with gender equality, which helps with quality education, you could say, yeah, well, that's a sustainable digital solution. Looking a bit deeper, or also looking at all the other applications which do not really just aim at supporting any higher level sustainable development goal, what about them? Are they in any way linked to sustainability? I think so. And here is more the complicated part. I think for these applications, we need to more closer look at what they do and what the effects of this can be. And we can say, okay, obviously, it's something like energy consumption, so the environmental dimension, that these applications, they simply need to just consume a little bit of energy, and then we could claim, oh, well, that's a sustainable digital solution. But wait a moment, let's not stop there. In our discussions, we go a bit beyond. We say a real sustainable digital solution also needs to consider other dimensions, like the social dimensions. What are the effect of the solutions on social aspects, even on the individual, and also economic. Yeah, the economic dimension is important as well. So we need to have this holistic view again, as Stan said, not just to consider one aspect, but to have a broad understanding and then to investigate the consequences of a potential solution in many dimensions. When we look at science again, also what we discussed with industry and what maybe is next on our agenda, there is one thing which really shows a big gap. And when we ask, hey, practitioners, what do you really need now to provide sustainable design solutions? They said that there is a big lack of methods and tools. So you can see here, these are really also is feedback from practitioners where they say, I would love to do more regarding sustainability design, but currently it's not supported. And we really would need methods and tools. And this brings me to a current research we are doing. So when we look ahead, it is then also a framework we have developed. It's an initial draft of a framework. Um, One moment. It's an initial draft of a framework, and there we basically follow this idea uh, I just mentioned before, that we start when we have defined the vision of the system, or also when we know requirements, and then, for example, in the form of a workshop, really try to understand what could be potential impacts, consequences of that system over time in different dimensions. And here you see it's not just the environmental, the economic, and the social dimension, which I have mentioned before. It's also the individual and the technical, because we are discussing about technical solutions. So, in the sustainability awareness framework, we have many questions which help the team to understand potential effects. So, in the end, if we also look at example, going back to the Airbnb, then we could think about what are really the effects of Airbnb. I know that by now we know the effects because the system is running, is in place, but ideally you also do this when you start thinking about a solution. And of course, later on, when you're on your way, when there are early ideas, early solutions, early prototypes out there, and even when the system is running, do it again. I think it's a continuous process. But we also say, let's start with the requirements. And then you maybe can see, yeah, well, of course, a system like Airbnb will increase the room rents and leads to greater earnings for the people who own the flats. But other effects, more long-term effects, like that the rents increase in the city center, and that leads to gentrification and even to greater racial disparities. This is something you could also, even early on, at least think of. And then maybe you can plan for mitigation strategies that this does not happen. Let's look again forward on the next slide. When I say, okay, let's do a workshop, many people might say, yeah, well, it's nice, this idea of having, let's say, sustainability awareness framework, but we anyway, our daily life is busy. it's super hard to do something extra. So we also need to think about how to integrate this in existing processes. And we also have done some research on that. And here we can go into detail later on if you're interested. Here is also some work on how to integrate these ideas in Scrum, in Agile frameworks. Also, for example, as we have already seen, in the form of a plugin for Jira, that we also within Jira could have at least an idea what are potential effects. If we now would say, okay, we have all this, we need to check a little bit if you're on the right path, and we did this as well. I mean, you've seen a lot of people are involved. I then also asked ChatGPT, because people also said, if you now have a webinar and you go online, make sure AI is involved, and that's what we did. Just to come to the point, what is interesting in the answer of ChatGPT, what is a key advantage of software engineering regarding sustainability, ChatGPT mainly considers the environmental dimension, which is super important. But as said, to be a little bit more holistic, I guess, is important as well. And we also see, to make it short, that the two things, the process and the product, and also how the product is hosted. But let's go on, and let's also think about what is next, what would we need, because there are a lot of ideas now how to continue. And we also are having ideas, what would we need to do in order to provide this knowledge, this information, also in the form of a training course, of a syllabus, at a university maybe, to practitioners. And here you see some ideas, and I would just roughly mention that, of course, it's about the stakeholders. It's again about awareness. It's again about responsibility. And if we go to the next slide, it's about method and tools. It's about methods regarding requirements engineering. But of course, it's also about software architecture and to use technologies which in the end do not consume a lot of resources. If we further look ahead, it's also about qualities and, as I said, this continuous idea that we continuously look at what are potential effects and what are actually effects of system. I guess that's super important as well. So, okay, where do we stand? What is missing? What are your ideas regarding content which should be shared with practitioners? What is missing in your work? Are you already designing sustainable solutions, or do you say, oh, well, I would need these methods and tools, I would need something in particular? Would be interesting to know. Let's further see where we stand and also look at what else needs to be considered. And I guess there are also very interesting things to consider. Management support, investor support. Recently at a conference, people also say it's so important what investors think a company should do. But I guess it's also the management of a company who needs to support the idea of sustainable digital design. But it's not only the companies, it's also the consumers, the users of applications. So similar to organic products you can buy in supermarket, maybe one day we will say, okay, I only want to download apps which have this green icon on top, and where I know that the process and also the solution was designed in a way that sustainability was considered. Of course, there can be a lot of standards, regulation. The government could force companies to also, follow sustainable digital design. And there are many ways to also go ahead. But I personally also like the idea that it is the companies who really want to provide these sustainable solutions. And this also brings me to the conclusion of this talk, to our final slide. We think with the DDP, we have already achieved quite a bit. The awareness, the responsibility, it's all in there. The research community is acting and is active in coming up with new method tools. Of course, it could be a bit faster. We also see that companies are willing to embrace the topic of sustainability, but again, could be a bit more, could be a bit faster. So we need to better understand the needs of companies, of practitioners, to also establish a shared understanding, a shared vocabulary when talking about this topic. And of course, these methods and tools, which we then need to kind of include in teaching means at university, but also, for example, at IRAP, that we have something like an advanced digital design professional training, where we also then discuss tools or the information people need, practitioners need. And ideally, this is done also based on a broader initiative between industry, academia, so that we really, maybe can go ahead a bit faster as we do right now. And with this, I very much look forward to questions and a discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Norbert and Stan. It was very interesting insights. And yeah, for our audience, if you have any questions, if you have any comments, or if you want to share your experiences with us, feel free to drop us a comment. You can comment on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on YouTube. We will get your comments right into the studio, and Norbert and Stan are very happy to answer your questions. And I want to pick up on one thing you said. So this is the holistic view you both mentioned, which is very important to take in account when talking about sustainability. And I think this is a very important point. And for me, my question was, how can you sharpen the mindset of your team to take this holistic view? Do you have any answer on that? Do you have any ideas how we can implement those mindset in our teams?
So then I will very briefly go first. I think you can do this in a simple way at first. So if your team is aware that sustainability is important, then you might be aware of the ecological dimension. And we have seen also this image of the 3 dimensions, then the table of the 5 dimensions. And what we have learned from our trials with SUSURF in industry, that it is kind of easy for people to then also think about aspects like individual, social. They might not always get it right. And maybe you need someone like a so-called sustainability facilitator, a person who has a deep understanding of these dimensions. But overall, I would say it's not too hard to understand the dimensions and then to also think about, hey, what could be potential effects of the system in these dimensions? But Eva, here I also would like to hear about your opinion. What do you think? Is it possible to just say, hey, we have these 5 dimensions, think about it, or is it harder than I would think?
So I think like the first thing, the first step you need to take is like to be aware of these dimensions. I think a lot of people maybe heard this for not maybe the first time, but like one of the first times. So it's really important to be aware of the dimensions. And yeah, I think personally for me, it's like, I would say also we are on a good starting point, but as you said, there's much more to do in the future. And yeah, also I want to know from the audience if you have any ideas, any experiences about sustainability in your context, in your company. Do you have any experiences with that? Please drop us a comment. We would be very happy to hear about you. And then, did you want to say something?
Let me wait for my microphone. Yeah, no, I'm unmuted. I can. So let me just also give some my 5 cents. I think when talking about sustainability, it doesn't matter in which kind of context, if this is in requirements engineering, architecture, in implementation, or in digital design. I think the most important thing is some kind of awareness, that people are aware of the effect of sustainability and that there are these different dimensions, because then people are able to think on it and to make the best out of it, to see, hey, when I'm choosing a certain technique or technology, then this has impact on the social dimension, on the ecological dimension, and so on. Because otherwise, without this idea or without this framework, it's quite hard. I think there's still some way to go. Norbert, correct me if I'm wrong. Behind this kind of awareness model, just to say these are the right techniques or methods to discuss sustainable solutions, to discuss sustainable aspects. This is for sure something that needs to be done.
Definitely. And I also want to highlight another point that came from both of you during the presentation, is that it needs like a sustainable process and a product or a solution that is sustainable. And Stan, what you said in the very beginning, you brought up this example of the Lime bicycles, I think. So it just came to my mind that a lot of like companies are participating now in the sharing economy, which is also, I think, a very nice example for like future solutions which can be more sustainable. There are like so many, like Lime or Miles, like these car sharing platforms. So yeah, that was something that came to my mind.
Absolutely. I think especially with the technology that we currently have, broadband, more or less mobile connection everywhere in each corner that we are, and mobile payments, GPS localization, and all these things help, especially for this kind of sharing topics, for car sharing, for bikes, for scooters, for whatever you like. And I think to think on sustainable solutions, here really the technology and the idea of to make something with digital means really helps maybe to make the world somehow a bit better, because in analog worlds this would not be possible. And for sure there are two things. On the one hand, as Norbert, as you already mentioned, you have the process of doing something. So when you're creating a new digital solution, doesn't matter if this is, let's say, really for sustainability or for something else. This process, on the one hand, should be sustainable. This means working on this process or working on a solution should be sustainable. And on the other hand, with our digital means, with the technology that we have at hand, we are really able to create some sustainable solutions for sharing power, for sharing with our neighborhood, with the power plants on our roofs, sharing our cars, sharing, for instance, some food. There are many ideas that could be done with this technology.
Yeah, that's a very good look into the future, and I'm also very excited to see what comes. Yeah, just another question, because you said everybody's talking about AI right now, and do you have any? It can be a short answer, but do you have any look into the future how AI can help to be more sustainable in a digital context? Or is it even possible? Maybe it could also be possible that for now it's not really helpful for more sustainability.
Norbert?
I can, of course, start. I very much like the idea that these effects, so SUSAF, could be, supported with the help of an AI, maybe. That we say, instead of developers discussing potential effects, we could ask an AI to also think a little bit of potential effects of this anticipated solution. And I guess that's definitely worth a try. So that would be a very simple next step for us, for example, in our research, to also maybe compare what the output of a workshop, of a sustainability awareness workshop regarding an anticipated solution, is compared to what an AI says, right? What the effects of that solution could be. And then you can still have humans in the loop who think about what the AI suggests and see if this is a reasonable answer or if it's just, not relevant, because this, of course, can happen as well. But to automate this process a little bit with the help of an AI, I think, at least for my research, for this research I have presented, research with the Karl Skroner Research Group, that would be super interesting.
Yeah, thank you very much. We have one more comment. I will just show it here, and we will see if you have an answer for that. And of course, if you have any more questions, you can also contact our experts or also us from iSQI personally, and we will be happy to give you more detailed answers via email or chat. But for now, I will show one question. Does anybody of both of you have an answer to that question?
Good one. good one. So it's not that easy. Norbert, do you know someone who could really answer this question?
I definitely can't. Not right now, but thank you very much for the question. It's super interesting. I will think about it, and I will also ask at my university. Maybe there is someone who could have an answer to this, and I'm sure Eva will then also help us to provide the answer to you. Thanks again for the question.
I mean, what I know is that there is some law by the European Union that is forcing, or that is, let's say, that wants to introduce a kind of accessibility for each and every party. But I'm not sure, being honest, how and when is this implemented in all these countries within the European Union. I think because then on the first step you have this EU, law, and then this will be implemented by the different countries. I have seen that there is something, but being honest, I have no idea when this will be mandatory for new websites that they implement this kind of accessibility for each and everyone in all these countries of the European Union.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. We will also, if you have any more information, we will come back to you. And we have another comment from Kevin. Yes, he talks about new techniques. And do you both have any answer to that? I would say it's more an experience than a question.
Maybe I can briefly answer to that. I'm completely with you, Kevin. That's so hard to justify. So if you want to change a process, in that case, the RE process, you need the support of the management, you need the support of the customer, you need to have good arguments why you want to do that now. I just hope that the mindset of people, and it's again about awareness, right? Awareness and responsibility. So if you now then say, hey, I really need to take care of sustainability, and we will use that new method also to, for example, see or anticipate effects of the system we're about to implement, then I would just hope that the management will say, yeah, sure, go ahead. And the customer will say, of course, I pay for this. But I'm completely with you. It's not the case for all the companies right now. And that's of course, a challenge for us.
Then maybe also brings up the question, how can you make this sustainable solutions or new technology more attractive? So how can you argument for these technologies? Do you have any clever tips or hints for that? How to communicate with your customers, with your team, with your management, for example?
Trying to unmute. Yeah, now I'm unmuted. Well, I think this is not a question of how to motivate your management. I think being more sustainable is something within the next 3-5 years that comes by default. If we are not considering sustainability, doesn't matter in which dimension, I think these companies will somehow lose traction. And the solutions that they are developing are not more that interesting. I think from year to year, from now on, I think people, this means the customers buying such solutions, are more aware of this kind of sustainability. Doesn't matter if these are ecological aspects like CO2 footprint, climate things. You need to pay more for your electricity. You need to think on can I already offer a new phone each and every year to run this new application. And I think this will be certain topics each company will face in the next 5 years that they need to consider. And for sure, for now, I think the only thing that people can do is creating this kind of awareness, because it's not any times the case that using technology that's more sustainable is that this is more expensive. It's just a kind of another way of creating the solutions, another way of choosing this variance. And I think here, especially the digital design professional, or the idea behind the digital design professional, doing things more explorative, finding out different ways of how to create the solution, creating first maybe a lean solution and then extending the solution to the matter that is needed. I think this will also help in creating or in considering sustainability in the future.
Great, thank you so much. If from the audience, if there are any more questions, you have the chance now to ask your questions, to share your experiences, your comments. Otherwise, I would say we had a very, very interesting talk, a lot of exciting insights. And of course, you will find this webinar also online on YouTube, on LinkedIn, so it will stay online. You can watch it later when you have time. And of course, we are still happy to answer your questions. And I would also say, if you want to connect with us, you can find all of us, I think, on LinkedIn as well. You can also send us an email, or you can just also contact iSQI, and we will connect you with the experts. Okay, then I would say we have no more questions. We had a very, very interesting talk. It was a very exciting hour. And yes, thank you, Stan. Thank you, Norbert, for your time. And
thank you for letting us being here, and thanks to the audience for the interesting questions and for their time.
Thank you very much also from my side.
Thank you. And of course, let's keep in touch. And if you have any other questions, you can still comment on LinkedIn, on YouTube, on Facebook, any platform you prefer. And we are very happy to hear from you. Thank you very much.
Perfect.
Bye-bye for now, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.